Dude, fucking Fireball whiskey. Yeah, dude. You're winning when you drink that shit. You know what's better than Fireball whiskey? More Fireball whiskey. I got Fireball whiskey in my veins, dude. I used to have tiger blood. Now I just sip on Fireball whiskey. Oh, pow. So good. I don't know what Morgan's talking about. He probably, he's probably got a weak stomach. Not like me. I'm a fucking winner. Yeah. Winner, Fireball dinner.
Live from Arts Delicatessen in Studio City, it's the Nighttime Show. Tonight we have a very special guest, star of the Afrofuturist podcast, Two Black Dudes, and director and creator of Dinner at Lola, not to mention Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, Ahmed Best. We also have our head writer, Matt Walker. I'm the voice of the Nighttime Show, Mike Black. And now the man who's brought more calories into this deli than money, Mr. Stephen Kramer Glickman.
Hooray.
Awesome.
Wow, that was amazing.
Every time.
Thank you.
Every time, Mike, you just burn right through it. God bless you.
I just want to get it done. Done and over with. Now I can go home.
Just like sex. Just like you just want to.
That's more my girlfriend. She just wants to get it done.
Yeah.
He's like our Ed McMuffin.
Ed McMuffin. That's pretty solid. We are recording this episode. If you're going to hear some clanking, you're going to hear some dishes, you're going to hear some waiters bringing me pickles. We are at one of my favorite restaurants in Los Angeles, Arts Deli in Studio City, and we are lucky enough to be
Fantastic
sitting here.
place.
Yes, we have our wonderful team here as always, but we are very lucky to be sitting across from a legend, an absolute an acting legend, and a great guy who I've gotten to know over the years, and I'm very excited to have him, ladies and gentlemen. Ahmed Best.
Hello.
Ahmed Best is here. Come on.
Thank you.
That's a good deal. How are you, man?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm good. How are our levels, Matt? Are we okay?
We're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we leveled out. We're
Yeah,
good.
this is very exciting for us
I think the
to
other patrons are very happy that we're not doing the whole podcast.
at that level.
At that level,
Yeah, maybe.
That was quite an announcement.
A lot of them are just going home now.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, it's over now. I should just
Well,
probably.
they're like
I can't do
nighttime.
that work.
It's 12
it's,
noon.
it's the afternoon. I don't know what's happening.
What's going on?
Ahmed,
What's happening in this deli? Jeez.
Why would they call it a nighttime show?
I was here for some pickles and some kreplach. Now somebody's screaming at me.
I love it. I always love in whenever I go back to Canada at some of the Jewish delis in Canada.
Yeah.
They have like the waiters and the chefs and everyone that works there. They're all angry and they all yell and they're rude like about everything. They're like, "What? You want another soda? You're gonna die this afternoon? What's the matter with you?" Like it's just I love that kind of feeling. I love it.
There's a lot of places in Chicago like that. Like there's restaurants that are known for you go to just to get yelled at.
Really.
Yeah.
I
Like
love it.
I remember
They used to have
Insomniac
one
with David
here.
Tell. They had one that he went to where like all the workers like yelled at him and stuff. And
Oh,
depending on what
yeah.
you order, they yell different things at you. Like if you order the wrong thing, and
LA used to have that. Ed DeBevick's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a Bevix.
Yeah, and it's gone now. It was a good place for actors to start out
Yeah.
and be allowed to treat their customers like crap. You know?
Oh, I love it. Where, Ahmed, where did you start out from? Where were you born? Where'd you
I grew
grow
up in New York City. I was born in New York City and, raised there. So, like, this Jewish deli is, like, home to
Yeah.
me. Like, I know this well.
Yeah.
You know.
Where in New York were you? Where?
I grew up in the South Bronx and then bounced all around New York City. Went to high school in New Jersey.
What?
Yeah, South Orange, New Jersey. Went to Columbia High School, which a lot of people came out of. Laurel Hill went to my high school.
Oh, wow.
did they not teach taxes and economics there?
They did, which is why I was so surprised.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, it was deep. It was deep.
Did you know her back then, or
Oh yeah,
different
yeah.
else?
We were close back in high school.
What?
Yeah, we
That's
were very close,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I still talk to her brother. And,
So you were
and her
literally
parents.
there for the education of Laurel Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were both miseducated in the exact same high school.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Did she
Yeah, that
show
was
up
fun.
for like the school concerts, or did
You know,
she miss
Lauren
those?
was an incredible student.
Yeah, I've heard that she was.
She's super smart. She's
Yeah.
one of the smartest people I know.
I've heard
She's
interviews.
super
I
smart.
forget who it was. There was. You must have had somebody else that was well known that went to school with you guys, because I've
Yeah,
heard
a
interviews on like
bunch
Howard
of
Stern. Somebody was
people.
talking about going to school with Lauryn
Zach
Hill.
Braff.
That must be who it is.
Was in the same year as
Yeah.
Lauren. I'm older than Lauren, so she was a couple years beneath
Wow.
me, and so was Zach. Zach was a couple years below me as well.
Zach Braff, too.
Yeah, Zach went
Yeah.
to my high school.
I think that's it, because he
Roy
was on Howard
Scheider
Stern.
went to my high school.
Oh, wow.
What? Oh, my God. That's really
We had
cool.
a bunch of.
Did
really
you do?
good
Did you do any acting when you were growing
yeah,
up?
I mean that's pretty much all I did. I was a musician and an actor at the same time. Like, I would always play music, and then it would always be a toss up between being in the school play and playing in the pit orchestra in the school play. And we were talking about Keith David earlier, and
Yeah.
I was when I was 15, I would sub in the pit orchestra at Jelly's Last Jam.
Oh, nice.
With
wow.
my drum teacher. He was like a Broadway pit orchestra guy, and I would always hang out with him, and he would always take me around, like getting me ready to play in pit orchestras on Broadway. And I would go to Jelly's. Was like one of my favorite musicals ever to go to, and Keith was in Jelly's.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was Keith David, Gregory Hines, Savion Glover.
That's a
So-
killer cast.
Oh, it was incredible. I mean, and everybody was just so nice. Like, Gregory would enter the show through the pit orchestra every night, because he would come in, and then there would be this elevator that took him up to the stage, and he would stumble onto the stage, and that's where he would, start the show. So every night he would come through the pit orchestra, and he would shake everybody's hand, every
that's
musician.
cool.
And, like, while we were playing, as soon as he saw you stop, he'd go up to you, shake your hand, look at you, like, connect with everybody. He was one of the nicest people.
That's really
Ever.
awesome.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So I would play music. A typical New York day for me would be, I would go to a rehearsal for something, be in a play, and then I'll do like a late night improv show, and then a late night like jazz trio somewhere, and then be home at like 6 a.m, and then do it all. That was like a Wednesday.
I'm still
And that's
stuck
when you're in
on
high school.
Gregory Hines' entrance, because that's one of the coolest like power entrances ever. Shake everyone's hand and then rise automatically.
It's like it's the reverse Lady Gaga from the Super Bowl. Like, you
Right,
get
so,
lifted
yeah.
up.
Yes.
Greg Hines was like a big hero of mine growing up.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was, him, Sammy Davis, like all of those guys who could do everything.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He was like a really big person for me, and he and my drum teacher were very close, because he was a tap dancer and percussionist, Greg. And my drum teacher and him knew each other very well, so, we'd be walking together to a lesson in the village, and Greg Hines would come through, and I'd have like a good 10, 15-minute conversation with Greg Hines, and
Whoa.
then we'd move on, and then I'd see him that night at Jelly's. He was one of the best human beings to ever walk the earth.
Oh, my
He was
God.
such a special person.
That's
Did
such
you-
a cool thing when stuff like that happens, where you admire someone and then you get to know them later in life. And
Oh,
you're
yeah.
like, this is
they're the
surreal
best.
that I'm having this conversation.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You want to time travel back and tell 8-year-old you,
Yeah.
you're not going to believe this, but one day we're going to do this.
Yeah, I mean, I was really starstruck by Greg Hines, but he's one of the biggest reasons that I'm not an asshole, because I would always say, if Greg Hines is nice to just some random kid from the Bronx,
Yeah,
there's no reason for anyone to be an asshole.
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a good legacy, too. That
you just-
would be a nice legacy to
You
be
go
able
through
to
life,
leave.
you're thinking, what would Gregory Hines do?
Yeah.
That's all you need to do. Yeah.
yeah.
And an amazing musician and
Oh, yeah.
tap dancer. Like, I think he more so than being an actor, his tap
Yeah.
dancing was just incredible, otherworldly.
Wow. Yeah, such
What
an
was the
amazing
movie
talent.
he did with Baryshnikov?
White Knights.
Yes. Yeah. If you haven't seen it, check that movie out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
White
he's
Knights.
incredible. Did you meet Savion as
Yeah,
well?
yeah, I knew Savion. I met Savion when he was doing Jellies, and then when I was in Stomp later on in New York, Savion we did this thing on the Letterman show with Stomp and Savion, and like we reconnected there.
Oh my God! So
talk
then
stuff.
you ended up going and doing Broadway and like working on Broadway,
When I went to the Manhattan School of Music
right?
for college, but I was only there for 1 year because I had already been playing gigs, and I was I was hanging out with all of these jazz cats, like some heavy jazz cats, every day, because of my drum teacher. My drum teacher was in a percussion ensemble with Max Roach called Boom. And, I would hang out with Max Roach and all the cats, like all the old, cats from the 50s. And I had already been playing gigs, so going to Manhattan School was a little bit slow for me because they weren't training you to be a player. They were training you to, be in school. And it was a very different kind of vibe. And I grew up in New York. A lot of people at Manhattan School weren't from New York. They came in from elsewhere, so they come into New York to figure out what is happening. I already knew what was happening.
Right.
And then I got really burnt out on playing. I was a drummer, so I got really burnt out on playing the drums. Because I realized that when I was at Manhattan School, I didn't want to be a bebop drummer. I felt like bebop and bebop jazz wasn't really where I wanted to go. I wanted to be a little bit more funky. I wanted to be a bit more avant-garde. I wanted to push the envelope a little bit more. And
Sure, yeah.
And Manhattan School of Music at that time was very traditional, and it wasn't me. So
Who were some of your favorite drummers back then?
Wow, that's a lot. Max Roach was a big influence because I was hanging out with him and I was around him. Elvin Jones was huge.
Yeah.
To me, because Delvin Jones played with John Coltrane.
Yeah, I nearly majored in music, and then I realized when I was coming out of high school that my career choices would be limited in terms of because I was a percussionist and I was classically trained. I played in orchestras and I played a little bit of jazz band, but I was never a big set guy.
Right.
But I was I want to be a timpanist, and I was well, there's 10 jobs in America where you can make a living being a timpanist. So it's I'm going to go study engineering instead, and then.
And
never
now
did
you're
that.
here.
And now I do comedy.
Yeah.
But my favorite, I look at guys. I mean, because you mentioned playing more funky style, but David Garibaldi and Steve Ferroni and guys like that are just amazing.
I did a gig I wrote a couple songs where Ferroni played on the demos of my songs and just destroyed. Just ate it up. I played on the scratch tracks, and then Ferroni came in and I was like, why
level.
did I even pick up drumsticks? This doesn't make any. He's ridiculous.
Yeah. Do you still play?
Yeah, I play every day.
Yeah. See, I don't have time to play and be at the level that I want to be at, so I haven't played in years. But
you're too busy cooking and doing all sorts of
I got other
things.
stuff, writing jokes. Because my big thing was I got into playing in bagpipe bands. I was a drummer in pipe bands, and that was a lot of fun, but it's really technical. So anyway, I started to divert into drum talk.
Hey, it's all right. We can talk drum talk. I saw STOMP.
People love drum
on
talk.
Broadway.
If there's one thing I've learned.
Yeah, man. I can talk drums all day.
I remember.
Did you have a teacher that was terrifying, like in Whiplash?
Oh yeah. Well, see, the funny thing about it is the guy in Whiplash, who J.K. Simmons kind of based the character on. I knew that guy.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say his name because I don't want to blow him up. And
still come in here
because he's still around.
throw a drumstick at you.
I mean, and he taught at Manhattan School. He wasn't my teacher at Manhattan School. My teacher at Manhattan School was this guy named Justin DeChocho, who was just a really good music educator, just in general.
It's a great musician name too, DeChocho.
DeChocho. He was like a little Italian dude, but he was killing. He was a good drummer.
Oh yeah.
But the guy that J.K. played, really, it looked almost exactly like the same dude. I mean, he would wear tight T-shirts and just be a taskmaster. I mean, he didn't.
Yeah. Like in
want
that
to kill
movie,
anybody,
it's kind of like he's playing the same character from Oz, just as a drummer.
Yeah,
it's like he's completely terrifying.
I think of it as a sequel.
Yeah.
To Oz. Just after he got out of prison.
He got out of prison, went into drumming.
Got a music job.
Right. Secretly, he was a white supremacist drummer.
Yeah.
In prison.
Makes sense.
It all makes sense.
I'm going to go to my fallback option, which is play drums.
Now, when you were in STOMP, did you ever do the thing where you tied the things to your feet, the giant? Did you do that?
Yeah.
You did that?
Walkers.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What is something no one would know about doing that that you realized?
Wait. Let me explain to our audience if they don't know the musical STOMP. It was how many percussionists were on stage?
8.
8 percussionists, and there was songs that you guys would do where it was everyone just had lighters.
Yeah.
Right?
Zippos,
And so
yeah.
Zippos. So it'd be like a whole song with just Zippos. And they had these giant, what were they, oil drums?
Oil
or
drums.
Like oil drums. They would walk around and be the bass line of it. Dude, it was so cool.
Yeah.
I saw that, and I saw Bringing the Noise, Bringing
Noise
the Funk
Funk,
in
yeah.
the same year, and I was like, I think it was around the same year.
Yeah.
And it was insane. I mean,
That was
those
a
are
really
both
good
insane.
time for theater in New York because we were really pushing the envelope. It was like mid to late 90s, like 95. I started Stomp in 95.
Yeah.
And I was in it off and on for like 10 years. And it was Stomp, Noise Funk, and Blue Man Group. Those were the three big shows
God.
in New York.
And
this was
Rent was there,
Rent.
too.
Rent was
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
And we would all kind of hang out, which was weird.
Sure.
Because everybody knew who everybody was in Rent.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know, because it was Tay Diggs and
Idina Menzel.
Idina and Jesse.
Anthony Rapp.
Yeah, Anthony
Yep.
Rapp, Jesse
Yep.
Martin. Like, everybody knew who everybody was. They were people. But in Stomp, they didn't know who we were. We were just like, we formed this kind of big amalgam of noise. Like, we weren't really individuals. Nobody had cast names. I mean, nobody had cast names that you knew. We had
Sure.
cast names in the show.
Yeah.
Sure.
But they weren't in the program, you know. So it would be just
just
random
third from left.
people. Right, exactly. But we would all hang out occasionally, you know, and it would be like the Stompers, the Blue Man Group, the Renters. Like, we all had like these names, you know. Like,
Wow.
Oh yeah, we're sitting with the Stompers. Like, that's,
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
it would be. It was kind of like, you know.
It sounds like gangs that have reached an accord together.
Exactly.
You know, like-
It's funny, like when I was
The
doing
sequel to The Warriors.
When I was
That's the diner.
when I was doing clones in Australia, the Lord of the Rings guys came over from New Zealand.
Oh, my
so
God.
we were hanging out. It was like the Star Wars people and the Lord of the Rings people, and I would be hanging out with Elijah Wood, and I'd be like, okay, where's everybody else? And they go, oh yeah, he's with the Hobbits. Like, they called each other the Hobbits and the elves and the
Wow.
yeah,
That's
it was
hilarious.
Oh, my
hilarious.
God. That's amazing.
It was hilarious. Oh yeah, I'm hanging out with the rest of the Hobbits. So when we would get calls,
Yeah.
I'd call Natalie and be like, "Hey, I'm hanging out with the Hobbits tonight. You wanna hang with the Hobbits?"
Now,
She'd be like, "No."
now, if you hung out with people when they were making Lord of the Rings, did you talk at all with Andy Serkis? Because you sort of had similar roles in
didn't.
those films.
I didn't meet Andy until much, much later. Until like 5 years ago. That was the first
wow.
time I met Andy.
oh wow.
We always knew of each other.
Because you're like the two people who really brought that sort of like motion capture turned into animation you
Yeah.
see on screen.
Yeah, you were
you're the
right in
two
the center
pioneers
of
of that.
Yeah, you really were.
I'm
I
the
mean,
Vader to his Luke Skywalker.
yeah, right. Now you were. How did you make the leap from doing Broadway and doing Stomp and musicals to working on Star Wars?
Yeah, it's very. I mean,
Phantom Menace. I mean,
Yeah.
was that your first acting on screen credit?
That was my first movie.
Oh my God!
Phantom Menace was my first movie.
That my brain just melted a little bit inside.
Yeah, mine did too.
That's got to be insane. How did that happen? How do you go from one to the other?
It was very unorthodox. I was doing Stomp in San Francisco. I was on a tour.
Okay.
And this is funny. I was just telling my son this story the other night. I was on stage, and the funny thing about it was I usually was the lead of the show, right? But the night that the casting director for Star Wars was in the audience, Robin Gerlin, I didn't know she was there, and one of my cast members got really sick, and so the head office of Stomp flew a new guy out, and he was from San Francisco, and he had been in the show for like a year longer than I was, and he wanted to lead the show. And I was like, nah, this is my show. This is my cast. We've been all over the country doing this for months. Like, you don't know the show the way I know the show. And he was like, well, I'm leading the show. And I had to play a role that I hadn't played in 6 months, and it was the role of the guy who got sick. So I was upset. Yeah. And, when I was younger, I was kind of, arrogant and I was, Stomp was a show that was pretty much tailor-made for me. It had acting, it had music, it had movement, it had dance, and I've been doing that since I was 0. So it was a show that came really easy to me, and it was so much fun. And I reached a level in Stomp that I pretty much do any of the roles with, at a moment's notice. But I didn't want to play this role this night because I wanted to do what I do, right?
Yeah, sure.
So I had to play this role. And I was just a jerk through rehearsal because we had to rehearse it, right? I had never played it, and I was just such a jerk. We had these 4-bar solos, and I refused to make up a solo in rehearsal. And everybody was like, well, what are you going to do? And I was like, I'll make one up as soon as the lights come on. You'll see what I do.
Wow.
So I did. And the other guy who led the show, there's a piece in STOMP called Suspension, where we like hang from the ceiling and we swing back and forth on.
Oh my God.
So we're like 50, 60 feet in the air, and we're playing all of this stuff on a grid. We're playing like fire extinguishers and stuff, but we're swinging. And the guy playing next to me was not as good a drummer as me. So I was like, I'm going to blast this dude out. Like, you will forget him by the time we unhook from these things. And so that night I had an outlandish show. I mean, it was a really great show, but the big thing about STOMP is we're all a group of 8 playing together, forming this harmony.
Yeah.
It was not that at all that night.
It was Ahmed and 7 guys.
And the rest of y'all.
Versus
Oh my God.
And I was like doing backflips. It was just ridiculous.
literally doing
I was
backflips.
literally doing backflips like, across the stage with a trash can. I was like, pow, bang. I was like playing and doing backflips at the same time. I'm like,
wow.
All of y'all are getting creamed tonight just because I'm pissed, right?
Yeah.
Oh my
So,
God. This is so great.
The show is over, and I was still like fuming. And after the show, we have an encore where we all come out and we all play, and we do the last like call and response. So during the encore, I come out and play, and I take my shirt off, and I throw it into the audience like a rock star, right? What? And I'm like pointing to women.
Oh like, my God.
People are cheering like, oh my God. I was like, yeah. I walk off stage. Everybody's mad at me, but they know like not to talk to me because I'm salty, right?
So good.
So one of the dudes in the cast, his name is RJ Sampson. I got to always shout out RJ because if it wasn't for RJ, none of this would have been possible. RJ comes backstage and he goes, hey, I had a guest in the audience tonight, and she's casting the new Star Wars movie. And immediately I was like, oh, shit, I blew it. Oh, my God. Like, I was acting a complete ass on stage, and here's this person in there. I was like, man, I'm sorry. Because I thought
Gregory
it was
Hines
for
never would have done
him, ever. I was like, I completely, Gregory Hines would have been turning over in his grave. But I thought she was there for RJ.
Yeah.
And I was
you
like,
blew his
I
shot.
fucked RJ's shot up.
Man.
Yeah.
I blew it. Like,
Wow.
I just made, he's like, I'm so sorry. And he was like, no, she wants to talk to you. I was like, for what?
You're like, do I get lectured
mad at
now?
me?
I'm going to do
What,
it.
what does she want to talk to me for? And he's like, she wants you to audition for the new Star Wars movie. And I was like, what? Why? After what I just did? Like, really? And she was like, yeah. So can I give her your number? And I was like, yeah, just tell her to give me a call later. So I go back up to my apartment in San Fran, and she calls me.
Same night?
Same night.
Wow.
She's like, oh, can you come to the ranch tomorrow and put yourself on tape for this audition? And I was like, sure. So I drove up to the ranch, my first time to the ranch.
Did they tell you what it was, or?
Nah. Everything was
It's got to be a huge secret.
really, really under wraps. George hadn't directed anything in 20 years.
Oh my God.
There was rumors of this thing going on, and everybody was auditioning for it. I later found out that Robin Williams wanted to do it, Eddie Murphy wanted to do it, Michael Jackson wanted to do it.
Yeah, Michael Jackson was upset
Yeah.
At me.
at you.
In my face, which was weird.
What?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a little
Yeah.
bit. So keep telling us the story.
So I went up to the ranch, and she didn't give me any script or anything. She was just like pretty much talking me through this audition, and I pretty much did what I did last night the night before on stage, which was just like a bunch of different kind of movements. At first, they just wanted the mocap for my movement, right? And then it was much later that I did the voice stuff, but it was really a movement audition. So she did that, put me on tape. Done, took a tour of the ranch, went back down, and I was like, all right, I'm doing the show tonight, and I just did the show. Went to D.C., and then I get another call, and it was like, can you come back for a screen test? And I
How
was
much
like,
later was this?
This was like a month later.
Okay.
Wow.
And I'm like, yeah. And they flew me back to ILM. I go meet everybody at ILM. And this was like the very first motion capture test that they've ever done, you know?
Sure.
So they put me in the Mocap Suit, which is, everybody knows what
The
that
thing with the
looks
ping
like
pong
now.
balls.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's ping pong balls, and it's a very tight bodysuit that's
What did you think
revealing.
when you saw that thing?
I thought, you got some shorts I can put on with this thing?
Because you hadn't seen those before, right?
Never seen it before.
Yeah.
Yeah, really?
And it was different from what they do now. Like performance capture, motion capture. Now you have cameras that are mounted on you.
Oh, wow.
All right. So back then they were just infrared cameras around the room. So you needed a certain amount of space that was taped off, so that every camera around could get. Thank you. Every camera around could get the motion. So it was just like movement 360. Right, and they had these huge computers that were the size of these tables that were capturing all the information.
So people kind of had to come in there to interact with you.
Yeah.
And everything. Okay.
And they were writing the software as I was doing it.
Wow.
So there was like, they had nothing. They had no idea what was going to work. They had no idea if it was going to work.
Yeah.
So George comes into my callback or the screen test, and he's kind of like, you know, very quiet, walking in. And then he just really nonchalantly just directs me doing a bunch of stuff, and then he leaves, you know?
God, yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. And I thought, oh, man, well, you know, if anything, this was fun, and I got to see ILM, so thanks, y'all. And I go back on the road, and I was in Philly after D.C., and then we were going to go to Brazil to do STOMP. And I hadn't gotten a call. It was like a month after that, after my screen test. I'm in Philly, and I was like, well, you know, that was cool, and I get to go to Brazil, right? Yeah. And then a week before we leave for Brazil, I get the call, and they're like, can you come and do this movie? And then I'm on a plane to England the next, like, month. Flying to England, just getting to do this movie.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Man,
And that's
it's weird.
life-changing at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big game changer. And to start that large was just really shocking. You know what I mean? Because, you know, my father's a cinematographer, so I had been around sets.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was perfectly happy to start small.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I loved doing independent films. I loved doing student films. I loved being on stage. Like, this was my thing, you know? I didn't care about scope. Like, I just really wanted to do good work. I still do. Yeah. So when I get there, I realize how enormous this thing is, and it's a little shocking, you know.
Yeah.
So it takes you aback a little bit.
What was one of those things that you saw, like when you first got to set, that you were like, "Oh, this is Star Wars"? Like, was there anything like that that kind of?
You know, it didn't really feel like Star Wars until the Jedi showed up. Like it feels like something large, you know, because the sets are big, the costumes are huge.
Yeah.
You know, Natalie's costumes were ridiculous.
Oh
Yeah.
They're just incredible, you know, the hair, the makeup, the stuff. But when, like, Liam and Ewan walked in dressed like Jedis, I was like, oh, okay, we're here. This is it.
Wow.
This is happening.
We're doing this now.
Did you shoot most of the movie in England, or where did you guys shoot
We
it?
shot, episode 1 was mostly in England and then in Tunisia, in North Africa. That's where all the Tatooine stuff is, in Tunisia.
Now, was that in the same exact locations as the original Star
Same
Wars? Because I know they
location.
did it in Tunisia, but I didn't know if it was the same spot.
Location
Oh, my God.
as New Hope.
Well, who was the first person that you interacted with, like, as far as, you know, actors or people that you were getting to work with?
Outside of George, I met all the actors at the same time.
So when you were working on this film, because you were doing motion capture stuff, but you were in a suit on set every day.
Yeah.
And then how did it work? Because I've seen some photos.
Yeah.
Did you have the Jar Jar costume on, and then they just put the character around? How did it work?
Yeah,
exactly?
well, they didn't really know how it was going to work, so they wanted to hedge their bets on all levels. So if the animation didn't work, they had me in a suit, and they would just animate from my neck up.
Yeah, because I've seen pictures of you where you got like a Jar Jar hat and you're
Yeah.
wearing like stuff with your
Yeah.
arms, and then we don't really see that in the movie.
There are a couple of shots where in Phantom Menace where they actually use me.
Okay.
Wow.
Most of it is they animated over me, but most of the movements in the Phantom Menace I do.
Yeah.
And they just animate over me. But there are some things that I just can't physically do because I'm not, a 7-foot Gungan.
Yeah.
So they had to.
Right.
Like crazy backflips
animate.
and things
Yeah.
like that.
I mean, I did a couple of the backflips. I didn't do that like
the whole
dive.
weird spinning thing. Yeah, that was
I didn't
amazing.
do that. But yeah, a lot of the physicality.
If you
of
could do
it I
that, you should
did.
be in the Olympics.
Yeah,
You should have a couple gold medals.
yeah. I wish I could do that dive.
Speaking of that dive, you've heard the theory, right, about how Jar Jar is the head
The
of
Sith Lord.
The Sith Lord. I don't know if you can talk about that. Maybe you can't. But
Ahmed, both these nerds called me.
Yeah.
All right, and I'm a big Star Wars fan, but both these, when I told them that you were coming to do the show, both of them called me separately, not talking to each other. I went, what we have to ask him about
Yeah,
is the Jar Jar Sith Lord.
yeah.
And I was like,
Darth Jar Jar.
fucking nerds.
it's a compelling theory. Like,
a valid theory.
It is.
Yeah, it's good. It's interesting. I'll say this about it. I can't talk too much about it.
Okay.
Because,
just in case. Just yeah.
and it's really a question for George, because he is the mastermind behind it. But if it were true, it would make sense.
Yeah.
It would make a lot
That's
of
what
sense.
I thought when I read it too.
Yeah.
There were a couple of things that I'm shocked. Like the guy who wrote the Reddit post of it,
Yeah.
he picked up on a lot of detail that wasn't really talked about.
Yeah.
Like, mostly like a lot of the movement came from martial arts because I'm a martial artist.
Right.
And George wanted a lot of that stuff. So I did a lot of like drunken style martial arts. I did a lot of monkey style martial arts
Yeah.
as Jar Jar, especially in that
droid
final
fight
battle
scene,
scene,
yeah.
Do you mind explaining, Matt or Mike? You guys want to explain to our fans what the theory is, just so that
Essentially, that Jar Jar was kind of doing what Yoda did when you first meet him, where he's playing this silly, goofy, incapable character that's kind of annoying, but then later on he'll reveal that he's actually a Sith Lord. And there are little things that he did in the movie, like a very Jedi-like dive into the water, and he even does the Jedi mind trick move with his hand at one point, and he is the one who voted Senator Palpatine into power.
Yeah.
wow.
There's a lot of like things that just really add up to the possibility that that's what he was doing the whole time, and they still haven't addressed his fate after Vader became Darth Vader.
Yeah.
They still
interesting.
haven't said what's happened to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a scene in Sith that didn't make the movie, but was written, and it's somewhere. I don't know where it is, but it's me and Ian McDermott, who plays Palpatine, just walking down a runway talking about the Empire.
Wow.
And it would be, if there are any Darth Jar Jar fan theorists out there,
That would be
it
the
would
one.
definitely
Wow.
be a definitive like scene.
Well,
Oh
and
my
Lucas
God.
himself said it at one point when there was all the backlash about Jar Jar and what he said. Jar Jar is the key.
Yeah, he told
Yeah.
me that too.
Yeah, he was
when
like,
I was shooting, he's like, "You're the key." So
God, what a
it might be.
Now, also on another thing, what are your thoughts? Did you ever see the trailer for The Force Awakens where they cut in Jar Jar? Have you
Yeah.
seen that trailer?
Yeah.
Which is one of my favorite things about the entire Force Awakens experience was that trailer. I loved it so much. It was the funniest thing ever.
I haven't seen. I got to see that.
Yeah, it's funny. It's
Look at
funny
it, it's on
because
YouTube.
everyone has this love-hate relationship with Jar Jar, including me. You know what I mean? And a lot of the Star Wars popular media out there just kind of forgets that I did this thing. Like every time people are talking about the legacy of Star Wars, I'm just kind of omitted. Which I think is a disservice, not to me, but to the story.
I think to the story, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the story and the characters in each story actually do matter in the grand scheme of
absolutely.
things.
absolutely
And
totally.
what I thought was going to happen as I was watching the series unfold was I was like, oh, this character is his last tether to his humanity.
Humanity.
His childhood. And I was like, he's going to kill him in the third one. I thought
Something
for
like
sure
that, yeah.
he was going to kill your character in the third one, and that would show his complete transformation to Darth Vader. And then when they didn't do that, I was like, well, then what is he doing? What are they doing with it?
I was actually disappointed that I didn't get a good death scene. You know, I really wanted to kind of die in a real big epic
Star
way.
Wars movie
you know what
would
I mean?
be the one to do it.
I wanted a good death scene. You know, I mean, I think
There's still more movies. You don't know
we'll
how long
see.
Gungans live.
We'll see.
He could come
I
back
think they
and
were
get killed.
probably afraid because all these kids love Jar
kids
Jar.
love
like,
him.
Yeah.
there's
that's
not
true.
even a dissenting opinion among children.
Yeah.
Children
Yeah.
love
Kids
Jar
love
Jar.
them.
And I think that would have messed up a lot of kids.
Yeah, Matt was
Jar
telling
Jar.
me.
I think,
You know?
who was the critic that talked about him?
Well, I mean, Roger Ebert loved Jar Jar Binks. I remember at the
Yeah.
time his review talked about what a revolution it was to see a character like this and how it was like a new thing in movies that was going to start happening where you could have a completely digital character that looked real. It
Yeah.
wasn't something that looked phony or whatever. It was like, and he was somebody who always loved the visuals of movies. And, you know, like as Steve will tell you, I mean, for years I've always said I don't think Jar Jar's the problem with that movie. I know a lot of people my age who went to see Star Wars didn't like Jar Jar, but they're the ones who still complain about Ewoks being in Return of the Jedi, right?
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
love
And I
Ewoks.
loved Ewoks.
I love
Yeah.
the Ewoks, so it's
love
like,
Ewok.
so I never had a problem with Jar Jar. I have some problems with the movie, but it's not about Jar Jar.
Yeah.
You know, I think Lucas taking that much time off from being a director, I think there were some things that just his work with actors and that the performances in the movie weren't all that great because they were very wooden in a lot of cases. But, you know, I think
I mean,
Jar Jar
Ewan
to me
McGregor-
was
I
one of
think
the
Ewan
bright spots in that
McGregor-
movie.
Like Ewan McGregor's amazing in it, and
Yeah.
Natalie Portman's amazing in it, and
Darth Maul is the coolest.
Oh, Darth Maul's like the coolest villain we've seen.
it's one of the best villains in movies.
Absolutely.
Ray Park is just amazing.
He really
He's
is
a great martial artist.
I saw
great
him
human
at
being.
the opening of the last one. They had him come out. They did the whole marathon over at the El Capitan.
Yeah.
And they gave him the tri-saber, the new
yeah.
Kylo Ren saber. And they were like, "Can you do any tricks with this?" And he was like, "I've never held it before, and it's as big as he is. He's not a very tall man, so
Yeah,
like
he's little, right?
And he did this amazing routine with it. Like, you could tell it was the first time he was using it, but it was just amazing to watch him in real life do like a perfect form presentation.
Oh my God, so cool.
It was something else.
I don't like the
amazing.
Kylo Ren lightsaber.
I don't.
no,
I don't,
me either. It
Doesn't make
seems
sense.
impractical. Like you're going to
You
hurt
have
yourself.
two
Something that makes
lightsabers
sense.
coming out. I mean, if you think about it, like medieval broadswords,
Yeah.
they didn't have the sharpest daggers
No.
ever as the hilt of a
Yeah,
broadsword.
they were
Right,
there to
doesn't make
protect your
sense.
hand, not to
Right.
potentially cut yourself. with
Right,
it.
like you can with the there's a technique in broadswords where you put your finger over the hilt. It's called over the finger like a trigger grip.
Yeah.
If you do that to Kylo Ren, you'll cut your
finger's
whole
gone.
hand
Yeah,
off.
that's
Like,
insanity.
It doesn't make any sense.
Now we
I know.
haven't.
I agree 100%.
We haven't seen any
100%.
close-ups of Kylo Ren's hands, so maybe
might
he's
not
got
have any
robot
fingers.
fingers.
He may not have any fingers.
He's got those Luke hands
He
with
may not
the
have any
Luke robot
fingers.
fingers now.
If they did the cross
yes.
hilt without the lightsabers coming out on the side, I've been like, oh yeah, I can deal with that.
The
Yeah.
one
Yes.
thing that I heard that made it make sense was it helps protect you from someone chopping your hand off. And I was like, I guess.
Yeah, so you can
still
chop
seems-
your own hand off.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
dear
like
God.
everything about that lightsaber too seemed homemade. It seemed like
It's
what
it's a fun idea. I mean, I get what
Yeah.
they wanted to do. They wanted to have like this medieval broadsword looking lightsaber. Somebody said,
Yeah.
why not?
Yeah.
But like everything about him seemed like goth rebel kid,
Yeah.
and so it seemed like he was like, "I'm gonna go to Radio Shack and I'll show them what a lightsaber is." And
Well, he
that's
was.
what you get.
He really is Darth
You know?
Millennial. Like that's
Yeah,
the thing. It's-
absolutely. I mean, I honestly couldn't stand Adam Driver before I saw Force Awakens.
yeah.
Couldn't stand him because I don't like that show Girls very much
Yeah.
at all. So
Steven hates girls.
I don't like girls. So I do not like girls. No,
He's
but
part of the He-Man Women's Hater Club.
I really am. But I was like, oh God. I was like, Adam Driver from Girls. That's what we have to watch. Are you kidding me? Like when they showed the first like sit around table read where you
Yeah.
see everybody.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, oh God. And then I thought he was very very good.
I like Adam Driver.
I thought he was
think-
wonderful,
I
yeah.
like him.
Well, he's under a mask the whole time. Like you see him for like 12
Yeah, but
seconds.
his
in the
voice
movie.
is great and his performance is great. I don't know.
I like
Look,
him. I like
You
him.
did.
He's good.
You had a something happen to you that didn't that is remarkable in the Star Wars universe of the movies. Almost never. I mean, it happened to Anthony Daniels, but for most people, if you are a character on set, but they can remove your voice and give it to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
They do. But they didn't do that with you. You got to do the voice and be the character.
Yeah.
How did that end up working out for you? Like,
Honestly,
were you guaranteed both, or
no? I was only guaranteed the movement, and then they were looking for voice actors to do the voice. And honestly, I just auditioned. I put myself in the same pool as everyone else. Like,
Wow.
I didn't have any kind of special treatment whatsoever. Like, they had a list of people, and I was on it. And I don't know if George knew who the people were. He just picked the one he liked, and it was mine.
Wow.
Do you think you having done the movements helped you sort of understand what should be done for that better?
I don't know. I know it was probably easier for George to work with me at the same time doing the voice and the movement.
I get that.
You know?
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know.
Were you
I don't
doing
know.
the lines on set as
Yes.
well?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was hired as an actor.
Right.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a stand-in. I wasn't a
No, of course
body
not.
double. I
Yeah.
wasn't a stunt man. I hired as an actor, and I felt it was my duty to be an actor
cool.
on
Yeah.
the set. So I was there every day. I'm in every scene. Every scene you see Jar Jar in, that's me doing it with everybody.
Yeah.
You know, that's not common knowledge. And it's funny, I was hired mostly for the physicality, and now most people think I just did the voice, but I did everything.
No, yeah, you were there the whole time.
You know?
So it's so interesting. the way
And it's
that-
funny, like,
yeah.
Andy
Well, I'm glad they did that
Serkis-
too, because like you see those tapes of David Prowse doing the voice
Yeah,
of Darth
and then
Vader
he
and stuff, and you're just
doesn't
like,
get it.
it's like it sounds weird,
Yeah,
and you're like,
it's true.
that shouldn't. No, I don't want to hear that. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Andy Serkis, the good thing about what Andy Serkis did was Andy was beautiful at standing up for himself as the actor.
Yeah.
Because it could have gone the exact same way for Gollum.
Yeah.
But, and I have to say Peter Jackson too really made everybody know that there was an actor in there and there was an actor doing it.
Yeah, they had that big Oscars push to try to get him nominated
Yeah.
for Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah, they really. Yeah, the Lord of the Rings people, Peter Jackson and Andy, they really made sure that you knew that this was an art form that actors were going to do. And I think they did learn a huge lesson from Star Wars, which was, you know, I don't think Lucasfilm pushed me as the actor as much as Lord of the Rings pushed Andy as the actor. And I think it was a little bit of a mismove. You know, it was an opportunity that they could have taken better advantage of.
Were there other characters on set that were digital as well, that were
Not that
being
were
done that way?
Not that were in the same getup I was.
Yeah.
There were other actors on set who were replaced. Like Andy Seacombe played Watto,
Oh, right.
and he was on set, and he did the voice, and he was there moving around, but he didn't do any mocap because Watto is a 3-foot flying,
Yeah.
you know, blue creature. So, but he was there for blocking, and he was there doing the voice.
Wow.
And then the guy who was playing Sebulba, who is the guy who knocks Jar Jar down, and he does the pod race, he was there.
Yeah.
But I was the only, as far as I can remember, you know, this was almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, sure.
I was the only actor hired doing what I did, you know, what I mean, doing and who had to do the mocap afterwards, because I worked on the movie for 2 years.
Yeah.
Most of the principal photography was done, and everybody else went on to do other things, but because they were figuring out and writing the software at the same time, I was constantly at ILM working stuff out with them.
And that's in California. You were there in Marin.
I was in Marin, yeah. And I mean, I was living in New York at the time, so I was flying back from New York to Marin for 2 years, like working on.
Were you
Jar
working
Jar.
on anything else during this time frame, or was it pretty
I went
much your
back to
time
doing
was just
Stomp.
those?
You know,
Okay.
I was was my day job, you know. So I would do Stomp, and then they would call me on weekends, and I'd fly out there, you know. And then
That's
when the
I
movie
could, get
And
to
could
a
you
third
tell
of one
anyone
of
about
those
it?
days.
so like you're doing Stomp, and you've got good friends you're doing the show with.
Yeah.
Could you tell them like, hey, I'm in Star Wars? Or
yeah,
was it,
I mean, by the time I started doing the gig, I told everybody.
but you couldn't tell them anything about what was going on. It was just like I'm in Star Wars. That's all I,
I
can
didn't
say.
share the script. I couldn't tell you what was. You know, it was like a Bible of NDAs we had to sign.
I imagine, yeah.
Like, and you got to see a lot of growth from a lot of different people. I mean, Hayden Christensen kind of grew up doing,
Hayden did, yeah.
over there.
Natalie
and
grew up.
Natalie Portman was a child,
Yeah,
and then
she was 16, I think.
My God,
at the time.
What were they like as far as people to work with, or?
Fantastic, really generous. I mean, the guy in Phantom Menace, I really did most of my work with Liam.
Yeah.
And Liam and I really hit it off. Like, he's a very fantastic, special human being. And it was a weird kind of duo, him and I.
There was a fun relationship between those two characters, too,
We really got along very well. It was strange, because he's big Irish dude, and I'm the kid from the Bronx, and for some reason we just clicked.
That's so great.
We just really clicked, and I learned so much just from standing next to him.
So if you're
and
ever
walking
kidnapped,
around.
you're safe.
Oh,
You don't have to worry at all.
I'll never be kidnapped.
Yeah, right.
I'll never get taken.
Oh my God! And then and what's so funny with talking with you about this kind of stuff is that little things start popping up in your brain where you're like, oh my God, you had to work with Jake Lloyd.
Yeah,
and
Jake.
have you had any contact with him?
Yeah, I saw Jake 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, he's doing all right.
He got hit pretty hard from.
That was very unfair.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I got hit really hard, but I was an adult.
Yeah.
There's a big
And I'm
difference
from the Bronx.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
You've heard worse than anything on.
oh, you
didn't
didn't like my character in the movie. Boo hoo! I'm trying to survive up in here.
Here, the big difference was to me is that your character was polarizing. There were people who, to this day, grew up being like, I love Jar Jar Binks. It was my favorite character as a kid. I grew up watching him. I had all his toys, all that kind of stuff. And then you had people who were like, I don't get what they were doing there. Not the same for Jake Lloyd. No. Jake Lloyd was just, it was either I hate that little kid or nothing at all. Like, there was no no upside.
I can't officially say I hate a little kid, so that was the other
that's
option.
Gotta be rough.
It was very rough for him, and being 10 years old, being in this enormous resurrection of this iconic franchise, and you playing the iconic character turns into the biggest bad guy in movie history. For him to get the response that he got was just devastating.
Yeah.
And it was life-altering for him.
Yeah, I'm sure for going to school and having to be around
was very
other
difficult
kids.
for him.
Oh, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, that's got to be pretty rough.
Now,
it was
you
really
mentioned
tough.
that Michael Jackson wanted the role, and you had some interaction with him. So tell us
you
about
got
that.
to tell us the story.
Okay, so George took me and Natalie and his kids to go see Michael Jackson at Wembley in London. And he had known Michael because he did Captain EO, and Michael was a huge fan of Star Wars and all that stuff. So we go to the show at Wembley, and we're in the royal box at Wembley because, it's George. Everybody knows he's there doing a movie, and, Michael puts us in the box. So we're watching the concert, and I'm a huge Michael Jackson fan. Like, I'm an obscenely large Michael Jackson fan since I was a kid. So I'm over the moon about just being there.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting, me and Natalie are just having a great time at this concert. It was me, Natalie, George's kids, and George. So this dude, the royal box at Wembley has a secret passageway just in case the royals have to get out.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So this guy comes up from out of nowhere, and he's behind us, and he whispers something to George. And so George goes, come on. So we go in this secret passageway, and we walk down these very narrow steps, and then we end up backstage. And we're backstage at the Michael Jackson concert. There are people on gurneys passed out because, for some reason you go see Michael Jackson and you pass out. Right?
Yeah.
So there's people on hospital gurneys passed out.
That's like I dated a girl who was one of those people who would go stand outside Neverland Ranch during that trial.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, I'm going to Santa Barbara today. I'm going to go stand outside Neverland. I was like, I can't date you anymore. This is too crazy for me.
Yeah, that's too much.
I don't understand that enough. I like Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
Oh, dear God.
So we go backstage, and we're standing backstage, And creepy dude comes back, and he points to this, like, roped-off area that has, like, black curtains around it. And he points in there, and we go in there, and Michael Jackson's in there. Like, he's, like, changing his shirt. And I'm like, oh, snap, it's Michael Jackson. And George is like, hey, and Michael doesn't talk. He's just, waving at us. He shakes my hand. I'm like, oh, dip, I just shake Michael Jackson's hand, right? So if I were to die right then, I'd have been all right, right?
Right,
been
yeah,
cool.
yeah, sure.
So we go to the back. Michael comes on stage, and he does, like, 2 more songs. And I'm looking at 80,000 people at Wembley and watching Michael Jackson run back and forth on stage just like everybody's in the palm of his hand. This is incredible, right? He does Heal the World. There's like a whole bunch of kids that come out on stage doing Heal the World, and then he like disappears into an elevator. Elevators and stages are a big theme for me for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of people vanishing into the stage.
He vanishes into the stage on an elevator, right? And I was like, man, that was great. And I was ready to go to the bar and have a drink, right?
Yeah.
Creepy guy comes back, and he's like, Michael wants to see you guys. Takes us out to the parking lot / driveway of Wembley Arena, right? There's about 15 minivans, Toyota minivans that look like bubbles. And door opens, Michael jumps out of a minivan, and he's like, oh, man, George, great to see you, right? Side note, Lisa Marie is in the van.
Whoa.
So it's that era.
And I was like,
The Lisa Marie
snap,
era.
that's- and this was
Hadn't they
like
already been
post-divorce.
divorced? Yeah.
Yes. It's post-divorce, right? But Lisa Marie's in the van, and in the back of the van is like 30 kids. So it's Michael, Lisa Marie, and 30 kids. And then I look at Lisa Marie, and Lisa Marie gives me the eye. She
Is
like
it the
gives
help
me
me
like the
look?
what's up.
Oh,
and I was like,
Whoa.
I was like, is Lisa Marie giving me the what's up right now? Like, what should I do about this? I'm talking, Michael's right here. Like, you can't give me the what's up, and your man's right here, right?
Wow.
So Michael, like, he's like, thanks for coming to my show. And George starts introducing us. He goes, oh, this is Natalie. And he goes, Natalie, nice to meet you. And he's like, you remember my kids, right? He's like, oh, yeah, I remember you guys, because he knew the kids since he was a kid.
sure,
and he goes, and this is Ahmed, also known as Jar Jar. And Michael goes like this, oh. And I was like,
Deadpan.
what
Had
was
Phantom
that?
Menace come out yet at this point?
No,
or
we were
Okay.
shooting.
Oh, my God.
And he was like, oh, okay. Well, George, you know where I'm at, so give me a call, blah, blah, blah. They get in the van, and they drive off. And I was like, oh, that was very weird. Because he was like, he shook my hand, but he looked at me like, oh, so you the motherfucker.
Did he get in
Wow.
your face like nose to almost nose?
He was wearing the surgical mask.
Oh, my
Okay.
God. Oh,
So
this
it
is
was
so
like
good.
nose to surgical mask.
Yeah.
He was wearing the surgical mask, the fedora, the captain's jacket. Like,
Yeah.
he was Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The penny loafers, the high waters.
Yeah, the
he
whole
was
thing.
in. He
Yeah.
was like, this is how I dress.
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah, this
I
wasn't
don't
just
put
for
on-
stage. Yeah.
I don't put on Reeboks and jeans.
Right.
Yeah?
Right.
So we go up to the bar.
Currently,
You know?
I'm wearing Reeboks and jeans, just in case you're
It's
wondering.
not what Michael wear.
Yeah, no way.
He doesn't leave the house without a captain's jacket. Michael needs epaulets.
Right.
So we get backstage, and I'm having a drink, and I'm chilling. I'm talking to George, and I'm like, "Hey, George, man, can I ask you a question, man? What was that about? Like, why did you introduce me as Jar Jar, and what was the reaction?" And he was like, "Well, Michael wanted to play Jar Jar." And I said, "Well, what?" He's like, "Yeah, Michael wanted to do it." And I was like, "Why did you hire me if you can have Michael Jackson?" He was like, "Well, Michael wanted to do like a full prosthetics thing, and he wanted to like be in like full makeup and costume and stuff." And he's like, "I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do this CGI thing." And he was like, "And also, if Michael Jackson's in the movie, it takes away from the movie.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be waiting to see what Michael Jackson does.
Yeah.
They're not going to be watching Star Wars."
It's not like when he did The Wiz and he wasn't Michael
He
Jackson
wasn't Michael
yet.
Jackson. Michael Jackson
Yeah.
is the biggest cat on the planet.
Yeah.
So George was like, he wanted the movie to be the star,
Yeah.
and that's why he hired us, because
Yeah, right.
we were all at a point in our careers, especially me. I was
Yeah.
the lowest man on the totem pole, but we were all at this point of the careers where we hadn't really like broken yet. Liam was probably the most known out of all of us.
This
Like,
was after
knew Natalie
Trainspotting, I think.
after Trainspotting.
Yeah, so I mean, Ewan was known, but he
an
wasn't like a
indie
huge star.
He wasn't a movie star.
Yeah,
you
this
know,
is- this is
he
a-
was an independent film star, and so was Natalie. You know, an independent film star. Liam was the
Yeah.
only one who did like big movies at the time, so he really wanted to keep the integrity of the movie together, and that's why he didn't do Michael. And that's when he told me like Eddie Murphy wanted to be Jar Jar and Robin Williams wanted to be Jar Jar. So, I mean, he told me that. I don't know if that's true, but that's
Well,
what.
if it's coming from George
yeah,
Lucas,
I mean, that's
you
what
know.
he said to
No
me.
reason to.
But yeah,
God,
that was
that's
when
amazing.
I beat Michael Jackson out for a role in movies.
We gotta wrap things up, but before we do, I know that you've gone on to do all sorts of different stuff and do. You know, you've continued acting in lots of different projects, and we keep hearing your voice pop up as all sorts of different cool characters, in you know from the Clone Wars to doing the video games to doing Disney
You're in
Infinity.
the
I mean,
Reservoir Dogs video game, right?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
were you in that?
I played some random thug criminal. I was in Reservoir Dogs. I was in Scarface. I did a lot of criminals in a lot of
In
video games. Yeah.
So your characters actually get shot a lot.
I get shot a lot.
You get your deaths in video games,
Yeah.
not movies.
I did Scarface, and I was every Jamaican.
What?
And every Jamaican gets shot in Scarface.
How long do it take you to do
every Jamaican?
To do every Jamaican.
Yeah, about a month.
Wow.
But I was in there doing every random. They're like, "Can you do another Jamaican accent?" I was like, "There's only
my God.
so few Jamaican accents."
Oh my
Yeah.
god! We just sat down with the actor who played Batman in. I just sat down with him to talk with him. The guy who played Batman in all the video games.
Oh,
Kevin
Yeah.
Conroy.
Yeah.
And Kevin said that on Batman Arkham Asylum, he had to do 35,000 lines of dialogue
Jeez.
for that video game. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's great. That work is amazing. I love, and I played the Scarface video game,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I may
You
have
shot him.
I may have shot you a
You
few
shot me
times.
a bunch of times. If it had dreadlocks and you put a bullet in it, that was me.
Oh, now I feel
Me
bad.
and Eugene Bird. Like Eugene Bird also played a bunch of Jamaicans.
Oh my God! Well, what do you have coming up next? What's happening next?
Coming
What
up
are you doing?
next, I have a show coming out with my partner. His name is Jay Lee. He's in Seth MacFarlane's new show Orville, and he and I do a show called Two Black Dudes that Seth MacFarlane is EPing.
Nice.
That's coming out. I'm doing a podcast called The Afrofuturist, which talks about the future and black people and brown people in the future, and how the immediate now reflects on the long now, 100 years from now. And
That's a
you know,
great title for a podcast.
Yeah.
I
That is
told you
great.
that before.
Yeah.
I was like, that sounds
I'm
awesome.
big into like science fiction, science, and the future, and being a part of the future kind of really made me want to do this podcast and doing that. And then I'm creating and EPing a lot of different shows. I just finished doing a dinner talk show called Dinner at Lola, where we had like Seth Green, McFarlane's on the show, Doug Petrie's on the show, Cheo Coker from Luke Cage, and like we had a bunch of people on the
You
show.
had
It's
Brandon
coming out
Braga around. I know he's friends with Seth.
Brandon Braga, I want to get on Afrofuturist.
He's great. We had him on the
one of my-
podcast.
We
Yeah,
can
no,
put you in touch with him for
Yeah,
sure.
I would love Brandon Braga. I'm a huge fan of his. I'm a big Next Gen fan. I think I'm a bigger Star Trek fan than I am a Star Wars fan.
Oh yeah,
There you go. Yeah.
yeah.
Peace and long life.
This guy too.
Live
Same
long and
thing.
prosper.
Same thing.
That's
right.
Yeah.
That's so
Will
rad.
I be leaving now?
But yeah, I'm doing a bunch of stuff, man. I'm doing a
that's
lot of stuff. I'm
That's
constantly around.
incredible. I love it, dude.
You got to
You're-
get on Discovery. That's what you got to get on.
Oh, I'd love that.
Oh
That'd be
yeah.
awesome.
Oh, you would
Yeah.
kill in something like that.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Look, I think you're.
And then you got to tell him to hire me as a redheaded Vulcan.
Done.
So
Yes. really, Matt.
that's
You're
really.
plugging yourself
Yeah.
as a Vulcan.
I should be. Who would be more?
The Irish Vulcan.
Who do you know that's more Vulcan than me?
Yeah, right?
Nobody.
Exactly.
No one is more
No one-
Vulcan.
no
I
one's
just
more
met you,
Vulcan.
and I'm like, man, that dude is hella
I'll-
Vulcan.
I will get the bangs. I'll grow the bangs. I'll do whatever I need to do.
I love it.
I think that's the first time that's ever been said.
Hella
Hella
Vulcan.
Vulcan.
Hella
Yo, that
Vulcan.
cat is hella Vulcan.
I think
Should just be the name of the
Tuvok
episode.
could have been hella
Hella
Vulcan.
Vulcan.
Tuvok. He was my second favorite
Yeah.
Vulcan other than Spot.
Oh, he's great.
I-
very, very.
Tim
good.
Roth.
Tim
He's
Russ.
probably my second favorite after Spock, and then I go to Jolene Blaylock as
She was
to
good.
Paul because she's the hottest of all time.
I wasn't as big an Enterprise fan as I was the other Star Treks,
Yeah.
but yeah.
She was my favorite Vulcan, but I'm very shallow.
Yes.
I don't have a lot of prerequisites for Vulcans.
I love it.
Yeah.
Did you, before we wrap up, did you keep anything from your time?
I tried. I couldn't. Well, they were
Everything.
they
was
were
like
really
paranoid
good about
lockdown.
security,
Uh-huh.
and they had a deal with the Smithsonian. So all the stuff that went from all my costumes and stuff, they're all in the Smithsonian. So I couldn't take anything, and I was upset because I knew Andy took a ring.
Yeah.
From
Yeah.
Lord of
Oh,
the
that's
Rings.
so
He
cool.
stole a ring, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh. I wanted to grab something. I couldn't grab something. Like, curse Peter Jackson. Like, he just let Andy steal a
Let him
Precious.
have one.
I wanted a Precious.
I heard that Samuel L. Jackson kept his lightsaber and had BMF engraved onto it.
I don't doubt that.
Yeah.
That sounds
Don't
about
doubt
right.
that. I can't confirm nor deny, but I don't doubt it.
Where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me at Best Ahmed on Instagram, at Ahmed Best on Twitter, and at ahmedbest.com.
Awesome.
So come
Awesome. And
shout me out.
Great.
tell us again the name of the podcast and where
The
people can get it.
podcast is called The Afro Futurist, and it'll be where you get podcasts.
I love it.
Great.
Matt, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me everywhere at funnymatt.com, or if you think I'd make a terrible Vulcan, you can let me know at mattwalkersucks.com.
Yep, that is
I'll
true.
be logging
It's a
on
real.
tonight.
And what about you? What about you, Mike?
You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, all social media at Mike Black Attack.
All right, and you can always get me at Stephen Glickman, STPHEN Glickman, on all social media. And don't forget to subscribe to the Nighttime Show podcast. We're going to keep on moving to really fun locations all over the Los Angeles area. Some real fun ones coming up. So keep on subscribing and leaving us comments. We love you guys, and leave us suggestions of where else you would like us to go to, because we're going to the Magic Castle. We're going to the Hollywood Heritage Museum. But today we were very lucky to be at Arts Deli. Go follow them on Twitter at Arts Deli, or on Instagram Arts_Deli. They got the best corned beef sandwich I've ever had in my life. I love you guys. Thanks for listening to the Nighttime Show. Peace.
Destiny 2